I asked when the wedding was, and my daughter-in-law smirked and said, yesterday, just for special people. That sentence hit me like a slap across the face. I stood there frozen, trying to process what I'd just heard. My son, my only son, had gotten married, and I hadn't even known it happened. No invitation, no phone call, not even a text. Just a smug look from the woman he chose over his own family. Tell me, am I wrong for feeling betrayed? Would you have forgiven them if you were me? Because I don't think I ever can. It all started about a year ago when my son Daniel introduced me to his then-girlfriend Clara. He'd just turned 28, successful in his career, finally starting to settle down. As a single mother who'd raised him alone after his father passed, I was proud. Daniel had always been my rock, my reason to keep going. I'd worked 2 jobs, sacrificed vacations, skipped meals, anything to make sure he had what he needed, and he had never made me feel unappreciated. Until Clara came along. From the very first time we met, I sensed something cold about her. She had a smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind of person who scans a room not to connect, but to measure everyone against herself. She was polite, on the surface, but I could tell she didn't like me. You know that feeling when someone's pretending to be sweet, but every word drips with quiet hostility. That was Clara. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was being protective. Maybe I was just not used to sharing my son's attention, but as time went on, little things started to add up. When Daniel would bring her over for dinner, she'd make subtle digs at my cooking. "Oh, that's cute," she once said when I served him his favorite dish. "He always tells me he eats healthy now, but I guess this is his cheat day." I laughed it off, but Daniel didn't defend me. That stung more than her words. Another time, she accidentally mentioned that Daniel found my constant calling a bit much. I asked him about it later, and he sighed. "Mom, you do call a lot. Clara just thinks we should have more boundaries." Boundaries, a word I'd never heard from my son before. It felt like she was slowly driving a wedge between us. Still, I tried to be civil. I told myself if this woman made him happy, I'd find a way to accept her. I attended her birthday party, brought her flowers, even complimented her cooking when she made dinner for us once. But she never reciprocated. She'd smile when Daniel looked at her and roll her eyes when he didn't. I saw everything. I kept quiet for his sake. Things took a sharp turn about 6 months ago, when Daniel mentioned he was thinking about proposing. My heart swelled with joy. I thought, maybe this is my chance to finally build a relationship with her. I offered to help plan the proposal, or at least host a small engagement dinner afterward. But Daniel seemed hesitant. "Clara wants to keep it private," he said. I understood. I really did. But then, a week later, I found out about the proposal from Facebook. Clara had posted a photo of her ring with the caption, "He finally put a ring on it." And I hadn't even known it happened. That night I called Daniel. He picked up on the 3rd ring, his voice unusually tense. "Mom, hey, sorry I didn't tell you. It was kind of spur of the moment," he said. "Daniel?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't need a front row seat, but I would have liked to know before the entire internet did." He sighed. "I know, Mom. Clara just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. She's private." Private. That word again. Yet somehow, she had no problem sharing it publicly. Just not with me. I tried to move past it. I congratulated them, offered my blessing, even asked when the wedding might be. "We're still figuring it out," Daniel said. "Clara wants something simple." I told him to let me know when they decided, that I'd love to help, or at least attend. He promised he would. I believed him. Weeks went by. Every time I called, Clara would answer and say, "Oh, Daniel's busy, I'll tell him you called." Sometimes he'd call back, sometimes not. The conversations became shorter, more distant. When I did get him on the phone, he seemed guarded, like he was afraid to say too much. Then one afternoon, I bumped into one of his old college friends at the grocery store. We chatted for a bit, and he said, "So, you must be excited for the wedding." My heart jumped. "What wedding?" I asked, pretending not to panic. He looked surprised. "Daniel's wedding. It's this weekend, right?" My hands went cold. I told him I didn't know anything about it. He apologized, clearly realizing he'd said too much. The minute I got home, I called Daniel. No answer. I texted him. Nothing. The next day, I tried again. Still no response. I stayed up that night, staring at my phone, feeling this growing pit in my stomach. A mother knows when something's wrong. 2 days later, I drove to his apartment. Clara answered the door. She looked flawless, as always, her hair perfectly curled, her smile perfectly fake. "Oh," she said sweetly, "didn't expect to see you. I've been trying to reach Daniel," I said. "Is he here?" She leaned against the door frame. He's out. We've been busy. Busy with what? I asked, though I already knew what I feared. Her lips curved into a smirk. You mean you don't know? Know what, Clara? I demanded. She tilted her head slightly, enjoying every second. The wedding was yesterday, just for special people. That sentence shattered me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. You mean? I stammered. You got married yesterday, without telling me. Clara shrugged. Daniel thought it'd be less stressful this way. You know how family drama can ruin a good day. Family drama. I was the drama. That's what she meant. I stood there trembling, tears blurring my vision. Where is he? I asked again. Probably on his way to work. We're not doing a honeymoon yet, she said casually. Then she smiled, as she closed the door in my face. I sat in my car and cried for hours. I didn't know what hurt more. The fact that my son had gotten married without me, or the thought that he'd let her do this to me. The next morning he finally called. Mum, please don't be upset. He started. Don't be upset. I snapped. You got married and didn't even tell me. It wasn't like that, he insisted. Clara wanted something small. We were going to have a reception later and what? Pretend it's the real thing so you can save face. I said, my voice breaking. He went quiet. Then, softly, he said, I didn't know how to tell you. You've always had strong opinions, Mom. I didn't want things to get complicated. There it was. The excuse. Clara had finally convinced him that I was the problem. I didn't speak to him for weeks, not because I was angry, though I was, but because I didn't know what to say. Every time I looked at my phone I wanted to call and scream, to ask him how he could betray me like this. But I also wanted to protect him, to believe he was just caught up in her web. One day, about 2 months later, Daniel called again. Mum, he said quietly, can I come over? When he arrived he looked different, tired, thinner, like the light in his eyes had dimmed. We sat in silence for a while before he finally spoke. Clara's pregnant, he said. I forced a smile. Congratulations. But then he added, she doesn't want you involved. She says it'll be better for everyone if we have boundaries. That word again. I almost boundaries. She had built a wall so high between us that even my grandchild wouldn't know me. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have swallowed your pride and tried to mend things? Or would you have walked away completely? Because I decided to fight back, but not with anger, with patience. I told Daniel I understood, that I'd give them space. But behind the scenes, I started preparing for the day Clara's mask would slip. And it didn't take long. A few months later, Daniel showed up unannounced again. This time, he was furious. I don't know what to do anymore, he said. Clara's been controlling everything. My finances, my phone, even who I talk to. She checks my messages, Mom. My heart broke hearing it, but part of me had known all along. I told him to stay with me for a few days. He hesitated, afraid of her reaction, but eventually agreed. Those days were healing, for cooked together, laughed like we used to, watched old movies. For the first time in years, I saw my son again, the real Daniel. But of course, Clara couldn't stand losing control. She showed up at my door one evening fuming. You think you can steal my husband from me? She spat. I'm not stealing anyone, I said calmly. You already did that. She glared, her composure cracking for the first time. You've been manipulating him. I laughed softly. Funny, I was about to say the same about you. Daniel stepped between us. Clara, stop. This isn't Mom's fault. That's when she turned on him. You're pathetic, she snapped. You can't even stand up to her. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's face hardened. Maybe I should have realized sooner who you really are, he said quietly. Clara stormed off, slamming the door. That was the last time she set foot in my home. It took months, but Daniel eventually filed for divorce. He told me later that Clara had been using his credit cards without permission, isolating him from friends, even threatening to leave with the baby if he didn't do what she wanted. When she found out he'd spoken to a lawyer, she tried to manipulate him one last time, saying, your mother's turning you against me. But by then, he saw her for who she truly was. After their divorce, Clara moved to another city, taking their newborn son with her. It broke Daniel's heart, but he fought for visitation rights and won. The first time he brought the baby over, I cried holding my grandson. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I felt something heal inside me. Daniel whispered, Mom, I'm sorry for everything. I should have listened. I told him it didn't matter anymore. We'd lost time, yes, but we had a future to rebuild. Clara tried a few times to stir trouble, refusing to let me see the baby, posting nasty things online, but Daniel shut it down each time. He'd learned his lesson. The last I heard, she's living with someone new, and I honestly wish her peace. She'll have to live knowing that her cruelty only strengthened what she tried to destroy. Now, years later, I sometimes think back to that moment, standing at her door, asking when the wedding was, hearing her say, "Yesterday, just for special people." It used to fill me with rage. Now, it just makes me grateful. Because if I'd gone to that wedding, I would have been celebrating a lie. I would have watched my son tie himself to a woman who wanted to erase everything good in his life, including his own mother. In a twisted way, being excluded saved us both. So if you're a parent who's ever been shut out by your child, because of someone toxic, please know this. It's not your fault. Sometimes love means stepping back and letting the truth reveal itself in its own time. Daniel found his way back to me, and I know someday, when my grandson's old enough to understand, he'll know who was really there for him. If you were on my side, like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, and tell me in the comments what you think of Clara's behavior. Was I right to wait, or should I have fought harder sooner? Either way, thank you for listening to my story. I'll see you all in the next one.